In the hive, the single mission of the male drone is to mate with the queen. As the drone grasps the queen, he everts his endophallus and inserts it tightly into her reproductive tract. The drone immediately ejaculates with such explosive force that he leaves the tip of his endophallus behind. Thus, the drone's abdomen is torn away from him. Excruciating pain visits at the moment of ecstasy. And so upon orgasm, the drone falls to his death. The divinity of the bee stems from this twinning. In bees, sex and death are permanently and immediately linked. Pleasure and pain being simultaneous and identical. Sin and redemption are simultaneous too.
Once the notorious playboy of LA's literary scene, celebrated for his buzzy, provocative bestsellers, our author has lost his luster. Blacklisted by publishers, haunted by Me Too accusations, he has quit writing, taken a teaching job, and settled into a dead-end marriage. But a black envelope carrying an invitation to a mysterious creative residency offers him one final chance to recover his voice and manhood and to write his buzziest novel yet. So begins an electric literary mystery about 6 men who have been lured to the Hive, a private island colonized by women and run by a masked matriarch called the Queen. Summoned to meet her one by one, the men disappear until only one man remains. And his last hope to escape lies in that new novel he's finally writing, the one you now hold in your hands. Or will soon hold in your hands after ordering it from Amazon any minute now. Good evening, fellow rug merchants, cigar singers, and oligarchs of the night. We started off the summer with 4 very special evenings together, one in Hollywood, one in Austin, one in New York City, and a finale in London town. Each night special in its own way, each night so characteristic of the city where it was spent. The purpose of the show was to celebrate a new cultural sensation, a tantalizing thriller of our time, the publication and debut of HIVE by Garin Hovannisian, the most important and also exciting novel to come out since at least Michelle Houellebecq's Submission. And if we're being honest, at this time, it is a more important book to read than Submission. The year, after all, is 2025, and France ain't Muslim yet. Unlike Submission, or the nihilistic imitators of Houellebecq, HIVE does not submit to the romantic, political, cultural hellscape it so colorfully and accurately describes. HIVE does not give in to doom and gloom. HIVE actually conjures an escape out of hell and back to the future of love.
This is ultimately a love letter at its deepest level to my wife.
To introduce this story and its author to the filthy Armenian universe, I endeavored to craft an IRL adventure through its influences. The influence of the mystery genre, which inspired its plot and design. The influence of writers like Orwell and Ray Bradbury and Borges. The influence of magic, as Garin, the author of HIVE, is a magician and illusionist. And the magician's mission to not only surprise and amaze but astound the audience and make them believe again, is fundamental to the story and style of HIVE. Finally, there is the influence of friendship, of countless nights like these over almost 30 years, nights of infinite mental excitement spent in pursuit of the hidden truth.
It is a dark and horny night. Mrs. Peacock in the ballroom eyes a candlestick significantly. A wasp in the study searches frantically for his stinger. Mr. Greenwald in the favela brushes up on his Portuguese. Andrea Dworkin in the library slips into something a little bit more comfortable. Joan Didion in the kitchen almost but not quite eats that half a sandwich. A Hegelian e-girl's body count goes back down to 0. Too good to be true, says a gay economist of free trade. William F. Buckley socks me in the goddamn face. Filthy Armenian Adventures presents HIVE Hollywood Edition.
Hey, this is your host, Alec Mohibian, with a quick message before we continue. Based in that great but very troubled place, Hollywood, California, Filthy Armenian Adventures is an interdimensional travel program that takes you deep into the cultural mysteries of our time. In search of truth, in search of gold, in search of lost friends and unsung heroes, in search of John Galt's motor. This show is your antidote to the black pill. This is your guide to the places, the personalities, the ideas and creations the enemies of man don't want you to know. This is your techno-noir investigation into the good, the evil, and the God hiding under our noise. This is where you get the news before it breaks, before it blows, before it burns. The show is supported entirely by patrons at patreon.com/filthyarmenian. As a patron, you get access to twice as many adventures, including the most important ones, the ones with the real facts. Plus, regular brief smoke break spiritual reports on topics of the day. As a patron, you also get exclusive access to our Smash live events. Ask anyone who's attended one, and they will tell you it's an experience you'll never forget. It's very easy to keep Filthy Armenian Adventures alive. You can still listen to the show on your favorite app like Spotify or Apple, and you can do so with the pride that you're putting a little bit of money where your soul is. More patrons means more fuel, more topics, more investigations, more miracles, more secret locations, and forbidden territories around the world, and the world that is Los Angeles, our post-apocalyptic headquarters. It means we'll be able to track down more enchanting figures in the landscape, dare them to abandon their masks, and join our quest out of the darkness and into a golden age. Patreon.com/filthyarmenian. Thank you for being one of the good ones, and enjoy the show.
You see, sometimes even the most ran through art hose among us. Need a little bedtime story to get us through the night. Hip as we are, highbrow as we are, sophisticated or Sophie's choice-sticated as we may be, sometimes even we need a good old-fashioned fairy tale with a beginning, a middle, and an end to tuck us in and guide us through a certain kind of night, a certain kind of long, dark, decade-like night where life as we know it has been shattered by world events, and the center doesn't hold, and there are no flights to no islands and no Pacific, and the only thing to do in lieu of filing for divorce is to shelter in place and try to figure out who done it. Or in the case of Quintana, who Didion done it. Thank you. It's worth it just for those 3 faint chuckles. The fact that there are even 3 people to whom, in this entire world, I can make a who Didion done it joke and it would land is the only reason I have to keep on living. All right, well, listen, I just wanted to make a little tribute before we really began the show, okay? All I'm trying to do is, like, make a little land acknowledgement. Which the system won't let me. I want to make a little land acknowledgement, seriously, to the man who invented the night, the kind of night that we're having tonight. The father of the genre that is guiding this particular investigation, and the father of many other genres besides. And we all know his name, and we all know what he looks like. But as with certain other fathers, we take him for granted and probably haven't thought about him that much recently. So if you have a drink in your hand, let us wish a happy Father's Night and drink one to the avant point guard of the American imagination, Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. I hope he's listening. I mean, if you've ever shivered in horror, that was Poe. If you've ever been thrilled like Michael Jackson, that was Poe. If you've ever had a nightmare, ho, 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 that was Poe. Poe did for nightmares what Dante did for hell. If you hate poetry and have never been moved by any poem in your life, you can still remember at least 4 words from the most famous poem of Edgar Allan Poe. And one of those words is quoth. That's 25% of the poetry most people remember. Quoth! If you've ever misplaced your trust in a Baltimore Raven, that was Poe. If you ever married a cousin half your age, you didn't build that. Problematic age gap, incest marriage. Quote the Raven, that was Poe. And she was 13. If you ever married your first cousin when she was 13 and you were 26, and on top of everything, you never even consummated the marriage. The last romantic, according to the experts, the last romantic was also the first famous American incel, Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. And if you've ever earned a shitty living by being a writer full-time, that also was Poe. He was the very first person in America to pull it off. And if you ever drank yourself to death at age 40, just as your brain was fully formed and you were finally capable of consent, Edgar Allan, bro, that was Poe. And if you've ever gotten canceled by your self-righteous peers that nobody remembers anymore, who buried you in an unmarked grave where you had to wait 30 years for someone to recognize you, and that someone was France? That was Poe. And yet, if not preparing for this adventure, even I could have gone the rest of my life without remembering that before I was almost anything else, I was a Poe man. I grew up very Poe. When the birds and the bees began their song and dance in my dreams, and the facts of life snuck in through my bedroom windows around the age of 13, I had the Poe on speed dial. I am a proud ho-po-sexual, and I have great company. Because by intensely examining the sorrows of his mind, the madness of his heart, and the structure of creation itself, Poe invented a formula cherished and adopted by countless art Poes to this day. A formula to convert those evil, dark, decade-like nights of the soul into another kind of night. The kind of night where you can confront the darkest of darkness in this world with what the narrator of that very first direct detective story called that infinity of mental excitement.
I have committed many crimes in my life, but the greatest of them is the crime I committed against myself. I forged my voice so you might hear it. I twisted my words so you might read them. I wore a mask so you might look at me. I hid my heart so you might love me, but you never loved me. You listened to my voice only because it was weak. You read my words only because they were familiar. You smiled at me only because I was dead. But something in me had not entirely died. It woke up as a glow one night, made a dance for me, and tricked me into writing this book. If I couldn't write anything else, I thought, I could definitely write a mystery. I always loved mysteries, starting from the first one I read, the one that made me want to become a writer. So I set out on writing a mystery of my own, but something strange happened. I don't really know how or when. Somewhere along the way, the book changed. The mystery I started writing isn't the one I ended up in. And the crime I started investigating isn't the one I ended up solving.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Garin Hovannisian. I've known this man for a very long time. A very long time. And you've known me for a very long time. We've known each other since before we were men. And we met, much like the two characters, the narrator and the detective, in the very first detective story, Murders in the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe. The narrator meets the detective, Monsieur Dupin, in a library where they're both searching for a book, which is not specified which book. And that's kind of how we met, although it wasn't a library. It was Paul Revere Middle School on Sunset Boulevard and right by Mandeville Canyon, spared by these latest flames, I believe. That's where we met, in Paul Revere Middle School. And we did not know that we were searching for a book, but we were. We found each other first. I was into basketball and cardboard images of the men who played it. which I trafficked in profitably. Sports Card Caliber is the name of my business. And Garin was into magic tricks and poetry and genocide. He was really into genocide. And he was he was kind of raised to be outraged at the fact that there could be a massive crime that the perpetrators get away with forever, and that there's kind of no hope of ever, opening up again. And anytime anyone kind of tries to, it's like, just stop asking so many questions. Leave the case alone. Move on. Leave it alone. And so he was sort of raised to be outraged at that. And I was raised to be outraged at why they never called traveling on Karl Malone. And so we met, not entirely on uneven footing, would you say, Garin?
Very uneven. You were a very tall, beautiful, handsome young man, hanging out with all the tall basketball players. I was a chunky, short, very Armenian boy, and I sought you out from afar.
You deduced that I was a filthy Armenian.
And I played my part in making you one.
You played your part in making me one, yeah. Thanks for all the fucking genocide. I don't know where I'd be without all the fucking genocide. And how do you feel? How do you feel being in conversation with me in this kind of format right now?
We've been best friends for 25 years. We've been on stages together mostly to promote our various projects, most of them having to do with genocide and war.
First, they took the men. It's a common refrain from those in the genocide caring industry. There's two refrains. First they took the guns, and then first they took the men, the able-bodied men. Able-bodied men. The mic is getting hot.
It's usually you who essentially comes into my world. So it's the first time I'm coming into Alec's world. And so it's a new kind of thrill and pleasure to be here with you, my friend. My old dear friend.
Let's see how thrilling and pleasurable it can get. We plan to make it very thrilling.
When are we going to start doing that, though?
We're going to start now. We're going to start by telling the audience what book it was that we both were searching for and that we found, that in fact, at least in my case, was assigned to me by Pally High. Thank you. I don't think there's any Pally High. I don't think we have any fellow Pally High people here tonight other than ourselves. But at the end of the last show, Good Christmas show, if you remember, those of you who were there, I pointed in the direction of Pally High and made a shout out to Pally High, and 3 days later, but it'll be back, I hear, by 2026. Pally High is a very special place, and it assigned us the book as recommended reading. We didn't have to read it, like in the summer between middle school. And I had no intention of taking that recommendation. But you did, and then you told me you got to read this book. And what is the esoteric right-wing tract that we found together and that forged our friendship?
Well, this book changed our lives. Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. It was a thrilling read. We couldn't put it down. And it was our first literary adventure talking about this book and sharing in the mystery of this book. If you haven't read it, then you know about its premise, which is 10 individuals receive mysterious invitations to an island. They go to this island and they're murdered one by one. And there was something about this concept which has been plagiarized and repeated and again in literature that seemed so fundamental and so thrilling. And the conclusion was so mind-blowing that it addicted us. It got us addicted to the mystery genre for the rest of our lives.
By the way, make some noise if you've read And Then There Were None. Anyone? Yeah? Good. Thank you, Alex. Yeah. I mean, and it's not the same if you read it now. Oh, yeah. But if you don't know the story, and if you don't even know what that kind of story is, which we didn't, if you don't know what a whodunit is when you read this book, it's like a psychedelic experience. You think it's like horror. At first, it seems like horror. People start dying randomly.
And they're also dying according to a poem, which is very exciting. And it goes 10 little Indian boys.
What was it originally, though?
We're not going to say what it was originally.
Anyway. It had an interesting title originally. You can look it up. We're not going to say it.
10 little Indian boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9. So then the 9 becomes 8, the 8 becomes 7, and these 10 individuals proceed to die one by one until there were none.
In ways that are map with the poem, like poetic, like sort of symbolically a map with the poem. And then everyone's gone at the end. Everyone's dead. And it's like a tragedy. There was none. Yeah, and then there's a grammar mistake. It's And Then There Were None. That's not correct. It's supposed to be And Then There Was None. So that was confusing. So I didn't even learn grammar for years because of that. I couldn't wrap my head around grammar. If it's good enough for Agatha Christie, I couldn't wrap, was none, were none. So, but then there's an explanation for it all, and it's 100% rational. I mean, it's 100% like it was done by one of the 10 people. And when we learned that, it's sort of, what did it do? What did it do to us? What did it do to you?
What do you want me to say?
No, I mean, like, what was your? What did it open up for you when you experienced this book? What did it kind of like make you want to do after that?
Read the next one, and then so we went and we started buying all the other Agatha Christie books, including those featuring her most famous detectives, which we fell in love with and were so connected to. I don't know if you know of Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings. And our favorite dramatization of these detectives was on a BBC series where Poirot is played by David Suchet. And much of our growing up together had to do with this pair of detectives after whom we fashioned ourselves.
And it's interesting to note as you examine the whodunit genre, the various tropes, which have been pretty much preserved verbatim since Edgar Allan Poe. It has varied. I mean, there have been all kinds of adaptations and so on, but the core tenets are there all throughout. And one of those core tenets is that almost always the detective is not alone. The detective has a friend, usually same-sex friend, with whom he spends a lot of time thinking, scrolling. If you like absorb these Sherlock Holmes stories, for example, they were reading the newspaper in the morning, the afternoon edition, the evening. They're scrolling the newspaper nonstop. There isn't that much that's changed.
One of the detectives, though, is quietly wondering why we're not chasing after girls, and then gets the answer many, many, many years later.
I don't follow. I thought we were just the truth. Well, who needs pussy when you have the truth? I never really understood that. And the other interest, the other common trope is that the detective's friend. It's seldom two detectives. It's usually a detective and his friend, who is usually a little retarded, and therefore it was a bit of a Halloween came up and we thought about maybe doing Poirot and Hastings, and he wanted to be Poirot.
I was fat and short.
Yeah, I know, but I was retarded. But I didn't want to. What's the point of being a retard for Halloween when you're a retard in real life? Anyway.
Are you going to do something, or are you not?
When the time comes to act, Poirot will act. Poirot shall act.
So these detectives were very important to us, and it all started with, And Then There Were None, the Agatha Christie mystery thriller. And so it was only natural that when I set out on writing a mystery of my own, at least structurally, at least on its face, I created it as an homage or a reference to Agatha Christie, in that it is about, in this case, 6 men who are invited to a mysterious island. Unlike And Then There Were None, I write this in the first person. I write this from maybe a little toxically masculine first person perspective. The protagonist and the narrator is a man named Adam. He used to be quite famous here in LA, wrote those edgy, some would say misogynistic bestsellers back in the day. But then the climate kind of changed around writers like him. He was fundamentally canceled, and he's haunted by Me Too accusations. He's taken a teaching job at UCLA, and he settled into a dead-end marriage, a complicated marriage. The scent of his good old bachelor days are behind him, and no publisher is ever going to touch his book again. And it's in this context of contemporary Los Angeles and its post-COVID political, cultural climate that Adam receives a black envelope and is invited to a journey to a distant Greek island called the HIVE. And we'll get into maybe what the HIVE is later, but for now, I want to pause at this black invitation that he has received. And I've brought a black envelope with me, which both in mysteries and in magic play a very important role, because the black envelope, which shows up on the first pages of a mystery, is a kind of prediction. It's a kind of a promise that is going to be fulfilled by the end of this evening. Now, this envelope for now is empty, but I would like your help in putting an invitation or a prediction in this black envelope. Alec, before I do that, I've been meaning to ask this question to you for 25 years. Will you be my assistant?
Fine. Let's go.
So please take this deck of cards.
Okay, I need to put this down, right?
Sure.
I can put it here.
Open the pack.
I have not seen this deck of cards.
But we're not going to trust you with that. Don't worry.
All right. Okay. Good. Never.
So take the cards out. First of all, fan them toward you. Make sure they're all different. Show them to the audience if you can to see that they're different. Okay. Shuffle them. Do you want to invite someone else to do this for you?
That's up to you. If you don't trust me.
No, I mean, optics, maybe let's involve, we want to call someone from the...
let's call someone who wants to come up here. Bum-ba-dum.
Come on down.
Bum-ba-dum. He's got 50,000 followers on 25,000 followers. Everything he does is just a banger after banger after banger.
Absolutely, every week. Follow up Bum-ba-dum.
First of all, do you mind checking if the cards are all different?
So we can see. I don't see any duplicates here.
Okay.
Show them here.
Are you a magician?
No.
Okay, duplicates.
Magic on the timeline.
Duplicates, okay.
It's the only thing I'm good at.
Now, if you
My
could...
main source of income.
If you could shuffle that for me, and can you hand that?
One of these real quick. Don't make fun of me. I'm getting on my knees.
Which you just did recently, right?
Yeah, I was just at a gay pool party. Republicans.
But even before that, you did recently. This, again, in front of a woman,
Yes,
right?
I was just baptized. No,
No,
that
wait.
too.
That too. Okay.
Many knee events.
You have soon to come.
Tonight.
Wow.
All right. If you can do me a favor
That'd be a twist.
and just set the deck down.
All right, we'll do one more cut. There we go.
He's a skeptic, ladies and gentlemen.
I am.
All right. No, wait a minute. We still need you for one last thing. Could you just do one last cut of the deck and give me whatever card it is that you cut to without looking at it? No. Without showing it to me.
Oh, shit, my bad.
Just give me any card from the deck. We are going to put this card in this black envelope, which later we will reveal. And this black envelope will stay here. Thank you for your help. So that's the prediction and the prophecy that we will later return to.
Yes, and so...
And we may have an intermission, things may happen, but I'm going to leave this black envelope here and make sure for those who want to follow it, you may continue to watch it until the end of this evening.
Yeah, and we will have an intermission, and when we do, if you haven't filled out your answer to the question by the box in the back of this room right now, there's a box that asks you to elect a queen. And we want all of you to vote because we believe in democracy. There is nothing I believe in if not democracy. Liberal democracy, if we can find that. So please practice your liberal democratic values during the intermission if you haven't done so already. And so this is a very beautiful novel, a very important novel, and also very, I think it's a type of novel that the people in this room are actually capable of reading. Because I know nobody reads. Even the smartest people in the world just don't have time to read because they're too busy scrolling the timeline of Ian Miles Chong. But I promise you that if you can just put the Chong down for like 2 days total to read this novel, your soul will be elevated. And it's a very relevant story. We're going to get into it more, but I just want to tell you how disappointed I would be if you didn't take a copy or more with you home and give it as gifts, read it, take a picture of it naked, post it on Instagram, do all the stuff you have to do to promote something that's actually worth promoting. Because the fact of the matter is that this is what they took from us, like this is what your character, your protagonist is a writer. Okay, there's a lot of writers out there who are fake. He's a real writer. He's a real writer who has had his imagination robbed from him and who has been put into a prison where he is not allowed to be anything. This is a battle that isn't exactly a new one that you're fighting. We've been fighting it for a long time. We've been fighting it almost directly after reading Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, and transitioning to other kinds of mysteries and to other kinds of missions that weren't necessarily unrelated, right? What was our next big thing in high school after we nerded out over this particular book and its successors?
Well, you and I, my friend, we were always, and maybe I have to go back and analyze this, to what extent the Armenian thing, the genocide thing gave this to us. But we were conditioned from a very early age to...
Well, I'm telling you, Karl Malone always got away with traveling.
Right. And Turkey got away with genocide. And
Turkey
these two
always got away
crimes,
with
and these
genocide.
twin crimes of the 20th century.
And John Stockton would always elbow people illegally. Anyway.
We were very sensitive to injustice. We were very sensitive to the truth being suppressed. The truth of, the Turkey's denial of the Armenian genocide, the whitewashing of the whole Karl Malone legacy. And so we went to Pali High together. We saw that the fucking administration, we very quickly started to see the systematic suppression of freedom, of truth, of free thought, of the diversity of thought. And we very quickly founded a little newsletter called A Dose of Sense, which Alec was the editor-in-chief of. And we found a sponsor, a teacher sponsor, and a man by the name of Alexander Shigalter, who had a Ronald Reagan calendar on his wall, and who was the only conservative in the entire.
He had a portrait signed by Ronald Reagan to him. Well, supposedly to him.
Yeah. He was a very severe, well-groomed, rotund, bald, spectacled man out of Odessa, a Russian Jew. And he kind of took us under his wing and made Xerox copies of A Dose of Sense at the Pali High faculty room. And we would put that dose of sense into every single teacher's mailbox.
Yeah.
And so we started very early in...
We learned early how to slip it in stealth.
And then we took this... We took this to UCLA afterwards. We founded the alternative newspaper at UCLA called the Bruin Standard. And we had some UCLA people here. We actually have a very touching episode of Filthy Armenian Adventures features Wyatt, who years after us went and resurrected the Bruin Standard out of the ashes at UCLA, which was an extremely touching story, by the way. Because when we did that, well, first of all, UCLA was very interesting in those days. I succeeded Ben Shapiro as the only non-liberal columnist at the Daily Bruin, which was the official newspaper. And then I quit and started.
Well, you got a letter to the editor from
Ezra Klein. A lot of worlds were colliding at UCLA at that time. Stephen Miller was a major presence at UCLA.
You were friends? You two were friends?
We were very close. We were very close. And a lot of these worlds were colliding at UCLA.
And one thing that Stephen Miller said when you had a little quarrel that we won't get into now was, and this is not one of the truest things he's ever said, but what he said was, there's no such thing as a one-way street.
He did say that.
He left it as his AIM going away message as a kind of own.
He did have a pretty good career after that.
Yeah.
So
He went on to accomplish some great things.
We print tens of thousands of copies of this newspaper. It was a full newspaper. Our dear friend Bridget was a part of that newspaper too. And we would wake up, do you remember, at 4 a.m., we'd take tens of thousands of copies of these newspapers. We'd break into the classrooms at UCLA and we'd put a copy of this newspaper on every single chair in the university. And then at 10 a.m. we'd go to Denny's and have pancakes. But it was an exciting time because ideas mattered and ideas were also real and you had to work for your ideas.
Yeah, there was no social media yet. This is still before, this is like UCLA was 2003 to 2007. I was there for the last 2 years. I came from UC Santa Barbara for 2 years, did my own shenanigans there. So this is before Twitter became a thing. Or really, this is like blogs were the only online kind of real thing.
And it must have felt, it had the vibes of like the Samizdat.press in the Soviet Union, where you'd have to find your own way and go underground, and it was never going to be sanctioned by the university. And our professors who found these newspapers in their classrooms in the morning absolutely hated us, especially the back page, which was the Academia Nut, in which we featured a horrible professor with each of these issues. So this was Alex and my kind of intellectual upbringing.
And I should add here that at this time in the mid-2000s, these are often looked at as a period of great freedom in America and of free speech. And this is like South Park in its heyday, and things were great on the cultural level. But if you were absorbed in the lies of the educational level, you saw something coming, a great big bad storm coming. And when you tried to tell people outside, there's a great big bad storm coming. These people, all of our peers, are being indoctrinated to believe in nothing but water, like bullshit social justice. The thing that was happening was it wasn't just that the extremist bad ideas were being brewed, but that there was nothing being kind of instilled to resist those ideas. There was no real appreciation for the kind of books that we appreciated, and for literature. That was kind of going away while the political stuff was brewing. And we all kind of felt that pretty soon these people would grow up, they'd get over their beer drinking phase, and they'd have nothing to believe in. God was very, very, very unpopular in those days. If you wore a cross in those days, this is the pre-Dasha era. If you wore some of you are too young to know. If you wore a cross in the mid to late 2000s to early 2010s, you were getting into a conversation every single time about child abuse. No exaggeration. At least out here, at least in LA or New York. Not the case anymore, but it was then. And so we felt that there was a huge virus brewing and a big old vacant hard drive waiting to be infected by it. Well, we tried to warn people about it. They said, "Get laid, will you? Will you just focus on getting laid?"
They had a point, and I was still wondering why Alec didn't want to go to the bars with me. He was much more interested in the intellectual conversations in the middle of the night, and yeah.
If I didn't...
Still. It was... Still. I do remember, though, how he would admire the male body, though. He was,
Intellectually,
he would always say, that man is very good looking. He would say, he's very handsome, don't you think? And I'm confident enough that I would agree, because you were also in those years. I was following Alec's lead into lecture. I'm a couple of years younger than he is, and his mind was much more sophisticated than mine. He was kind of the thought leader of our friendship in high school. I very quickly replaced him after that, but in those days, and so I would repeat what he would say, and when he would say that, that man is very objectively handsome, and there was an Ayn Rand moment that we were having too. So the man was objectively handsome, and I was, of course, he's objectively handsome.
That's the only kind that counts. Objectively handsome.
Right.
Yeah.
You're very objectively handsome, Alec. Should we get back on track, or?
No, there's no track to get back on.
Okay, good.
But I do want to talk about these books that we've got sitting over here. I want to talk about, because I've been thinking a lot about mysteries lately. I mean, I've been not just for the show, but even in the last, when I had Steve Saylor on last year, and I was trying to figure out how to do my introduction of him, as I often, try to figure out how to do with a figure like that after meeting him, after talking to him. Like, who is this man? Really? Who is this, like, strange figure who's been kicking around in essential cultural solitude his entire life? It's still at it, still poking, still noticing. And in all the corners that you're not supposed to poke and notice, and where they tell you to kind of, look the other way. Why are you asking too many questions? And why don't you just get off the case a little bit? And it occurred to me that he was a living, breathing version of Raymond Chandler's Philip Marlowe, who Chandler, I have the quote somewhere, he very, very touchingly describes in an essay called A Simple Case of Murder. He touchingly describes the detective as this, like, the entire heart of the mystery, the whole point, everything, the values he must have, the fact that he must not be romantically distracted, because that would compromise his objectivity.
Yeah, and that's common to both Poirot and Hastings. It's common to Sherlock.
Very common in Sherlock. Sherlock has no interest in women.
Yeah.
None. Zilch. Cocaine, different story. Depression, different story. He loves to be depressed and do cocaine for weeks at a time in between being, like, activated. But no women, no. Romance is not a part of the detective story genre. Although, it's notable that when Chandler did his spin on it and changed things around, it's kind of in the atmosphere, all those dames and femme fatales that populate his books, some of whom are in this room with us today. Some gorgeous gams.
Beautiful
that
women.
Go from here to tomorrow without even stopping for breakfast.
How have you attracted them?
How do I, huh?
How have you attracted them to this place? Finally.
I don't know.
Finally.
What the hell should
Finally.
You think I care? I'm just using them as bait. Huh? Suddenly last summer action here. No, I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is that I sensed what was coming. I saw the writing on the wall. If I didn't turn gay, I'd probably be a woman right now. We saw. I got out of there real fast. I ain't gonna be. I learned from my ancestors. I got out
When Alec finally did come out, he wanted
of the hetero empire.
He wanted us to know that he was very masculine in his gay, and I understood. I couldn't do it. Like, to fuck a man, you really must be a man. Like, it really takes a man.
What is
to
it,
do that. It's
homosexual? Not a man's
only
man.
a real man could possibly do that. No, he wanted us, his friends, to know that he wasn't just lying down and taking it. He was perpetrating the genocide.
You gotta learn how to do it if you're gonna. Anyway.
Many mysteries awaited us.
Many mysteries. Well, let's talk about some of these now. Again, the technicality of the detective story wore off on us. Okay, but it is my kind of thesis for this evening, and which I hope to demonstrate by the end of it, that I think that if we really examine Edgar Allan Poe's invention a little bit, it can provide us with a little bit of guidance as to how to escape the mess we're in. And so, we graduated to different kinds of mysteries. Who killed who didn't really hold our attention after you figure out that there's certain tropes and that the one you most think is the guilty is probably not guilty, and you're kind of in this contest with the author who's trying to trick you, and you want to be tricked, but you're also trying to figure it out, and it's kind of a game. It was another sport. It's probably the reason that I was able to read that book. It was a contest between author and reader. But then we realized that the most interesting mystery is why there is a crime to begin with, why there is death to begin with, and other such mysteries. And who represents here some of those next level mysteries in your literary journey?
Well, I already alluded to Ayn Rand, and we have Atlas Shrugged here. Ayn Rand became very important to us in high school. Alec discovered her quickly, got me on it too, and it was the first time I feel. I mean, we were already getting very political, but we felt the absolute potency of this woman's voice, the way that the ideas themselves were the characters on the stage of her mystery, and that the ideas themselves were coming to life. I mean, it was an exhilarating and very influential moment in our high school days.
Yeah, and Ayn Rand, as I've explained many times over, and I'm sure you guys have heard me explain, was someone who, even though we were already red-pilled by the time we read her, by about a year into it, there was a next level red pilling with Ayn Rand, because she's the one who exposed the entire superstructure of libtard morality. And to this day, and she's been dismissed and dismissed like many another detective that we've talked about, dismissed and told she's barking up the wrong tree and that she's mad and everything. And all we've seen in the last decade or so are real life versions of her villains, and in some cases even her heroes. and a daily manifestation of the machinery that she charted out in the Fountainhead of how free thought is suppressed and mediocrity is celebrated and ugliness is perpetrated. So,
Can you do an Ayn Rand impression?
what should I say? Well, supposedly she said about her proclivity for her she worshipped men. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Is that okay with everyone here? She worshipped men. Ayn Rand really worshipped men. And her atheism was a function of that. It wasn't a function of her lack of, I think, moral passion, but it was the fact that she just worshipped men so much that she was offended by the idea that there was anything beyond God damn it. What should I say?
You want a quote?
Tell me a quote.
It is the woman's job to worship man and a man's job to worship nature.
It is a woman's job to worship man and the man's job to worship nature. I don't know. I could...
All these books that we've brought, and many more that are across the room, were very important to our pursuit of the mystery genre. And one that was important to me, very important, became very important to both of us, was the writer Jorge Luis Borges, the Argentine writer of metaphysical mysteries. Borges is very readable. He writes in very short 3, 4, 5-page stories, some of them in the guise of nonfiction, but they're really fiction. He's really a detective of the cosmic puzzles. So, for example, he has a story called The Library of Babel. And in The Library of Babel, he asks us to imagine a vast library in which each book is randomly generated, so that if you picked a random book from the library and opened it up, you'd see a random series of letters that don't quite add up to words, that don't quite up to sentences, a jumble, a mess. And then the book next to that book would be the exact same book, but one letter would be different. So it's kind of algorithmic. But then you go deep enough into the library and you pick out a book and you see, well, inevitably, here's one where a sentence is miraculously, or not miraculously, inevitably been created that makes sense. And if you go deeper and deeper into the library, you'll find one where several pages have sentences that are actually readable. And if you go deep enough into the library, you're going to find Hamlet. So the library has every possible book ever written. And what Borges is good at doing is confronting you with these moments and asking, well, what is the difference between Hamlet, written by William Shakespeare, and Hamlet, which is the inevitable product of the Library of Babel? And he has tons of stories like this, and I recommend you get into it if you haven't already, although it seems like a lot of people...
Are there Borges bros in the house?
Yes.
Borges hoes? Yeah.
He was also very interesting... Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
He was also very interesting politically in his country. He was against the popular... the Perón government, which was popular among the artists of his time. And he became a sage-like figure as he went blind, I think in his 50s. And there are a lot of myths about Borges and a lot of legends and stories about Borges. And one of my favorite ones, and I don't even know if it's a myth, is that when people would go into his home and he had a vast library full of books, he could literally go into his library, pick out a book from his library, flip it open, and start reading from the book. He knew his books so well. He was so erudite. He knew all of his books so well. So if I could try something with you, Alec, if you could just say stop wherever you'd like.
Stop.
Right here. Look at just the first word or the first few words. Oh, they're few. They're small words?
Yeah.
They're small words. In?
Yeah.
Oh, this isn't a very interesting one. It's just like a series of in, There's a he in this. There's a he. It's a man. There's a he in this. In something he. What does it say?
Yeah, you're right. Should I say it? Or?
Yeah, in some.
In which he recalled.
In which he recalled. Okay.
How did you know that?
Well, we rehearsed this earlier.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
But to try something a little more complicated, I'll pick out another book, a book I actually know very well, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. A very interesting backstory. Was written in the first quarter of the 19th century, 1815, 16, something like that. It was a strange summer in Europe because a major volcano had erupted in Indonesia. It had killed hundreds of thousands of people, but the ash of that volcano had seeped over the entire continent and into Europe, and they called this a year without summer because it was dark the entire summer because of the ash. And a group of people, including Mary Shelley, at the time she was Mary Godwin, I think, her husband, Percy Shelley, their friend, Lord Byron, and Lord Byron's doctor, do you remember his name? John something or another. They rented a house on the shore of Lake Geneva, and they told each other ghost stories all through this summer or year without summer. And Lord Byron, this romantic playboy, challenged the group to write a unique ghost story of their own. So everybody sat down and was forced to write a story. Shelley wrote some great things, Byron wrote some great things, but it's actually Byron's doctor who during that weekend wrote the first ever vampire novel. So he created the vampire that weekend, and Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. So it was a very productive, meanwhile, the doctor was, of course, hitting on Mary Shelley the whole time. Percy was being distracted by Byron. There's a lot of stuff happened, but Shelley wrote Frankenstein. She says, "Frightful must it be, for supremely frightful would be the effect of any human endeavor to mock the stupendous mechanism of the creator of the world. Frightful would be the effect of any human endeavor to mock the stupendous mechanism of the creator of the world." Obviously, very applicable to AI, what we're going through now. But when I read this book in college, this isn't how we discussed this book. The professor wanted us to know that the creation of the monster in Frankenstein was a result of it being created by a man outside of the influence of a woman. So I spent an entire quarter at UCLA learning about the feminist influences and implications of Frankenstein. So I know this book pretty well, and therefore I want to do a little experiment with this book in particular. Wyatt, can you take this book from me? And could you just flip through that book and stop at a random page and just look at the last word on either of those pages? Just memorize the last word on either of those pages. Just think of you have it in your mind? Yes. The last word? Yes. Okay, now please stand up and hand the book to someone else. And please remain standing. Can you do the same? Can you just flip through the book and stop at any random point and look at the last word on either the left or right side? The last word on the left page or the right. You got, oh, okay, you need a phone there. You need some light. Okay, no worries. You got the word? Okay, can you stand up, please? And can you pass the book on to someone else in the crowd? And would you please flip through the book and the last word on either the left or the right side of the page that you stop at? And when you have the word in your mind, please stand up. Would you stand up too? Yes, please. Remember the word and pass the book to someone else. Could you please flip through? Last word of the left or right page. Keep it in mind and stand up. And would you pass it in that direction to someone, anyone that you'd like? Sure. Would you fan through, stop at a point, the last word of the left or right page, keep it in mind? Did you do it already? Well, let's stop with you. Let's stop with you. Can you bring the book up to me? Thank you so much. Thank you. And you can all remain standing. It's too bad I cannot see your faces very well. Please remain standing. I'll try to at least get a couple of these. So I'm gonna say some words, and you just keep standing for now. I'm just gonna say some. Just listen to the words that I say. Sunset. Just listen to the words that I say. Just listen to the words that I say. Don't react in any way. But I'm glad I got sunset. Sunset. Nurse. Stone. Winter. Dreams. If you heard your word, please sit down.
He's a witch. We're going to take a little intermission, and we're going to come back and figure out what the hell that was all about. When I met him, he was into magic, as I mentioned earlier. When we were kids, he was into magic. And why were you into magic? What got you interested in magic as a kid?
When I was 5, my parents came back from a trip with a magic set. They gave me this magic set, and I had that moment when I opened it, and I instantly fell in love with the little gimmicks and the tricks the effects that were in this box. And I was a child, so I was already in the state of magic, I think. And so that's very important, which is that I was... Is this too real? I mean, am I being too sentimental?
Too real is the slogan of my podcast.
Okay.
So, no.
I was already in a state of childlike wonder, and I was a ready receiver of the message of the articles that were being handed to me from the generations of the things in this box that were going to make miracles appear. This also coincided with my selfish best interest in being a chubby, awkward kid of coming into some power in my life, and specifically the power of creating miracles and the power of impressing the girls you never wanted to go after.
His first magic trick was to make 100 pounds disappear.
It's true. I ate steak for a year and lost 100 pounds.
And it turned the tables in an absolutely horrific way for me, because I was the skinny one and he was the cherubic, charming one, but like in a cherubic, non-threatening way. And then suddenly became like Adrian Grenier ass model because he lost 100 pounds and kept it down in college. And I've never forgiven him.
Or as
for
Mark
that.
calls me, the Muslim Adrian Grenier. Yeah.
And Mark would know.
Armenians are Christian, by the way.
Yeah, he's not Muslim, guys. It's not the same. We're not all the same shit. So anyway, he lost 100 pounds. Totally stole the limelight from me. Not that I had much of a limelight, but at least I was tall and skinny. That was out the window. And so
I was
you
also
learned
interested I was interested to connect it to mysteries, into the into the puzzle of it, which is we learned very early that there is what you see, there's the effect. Even the magical effects are called effects. There's the effect of what you see, and then there's a sequence of much more practical and very often disappointing things that go into making the effect seem real. And the detective in me was awakened very early in that I would see an effect and my mind would be instigated immediately to go and try to find its cause. Because when you see something, you say, wow, this is amazing, it's impossible. And then you begin to figure out how it could possibly be that way. And so the difference between what we see and what something actually is was established very early in my life through magic.
But I imagine it also makes you quite arrogant.
Yes.
Because you think you know everything. And you do. And you do know everything. Yeah, he knows everything. That's so... Anyway, so his position is that he knows everything.
That's one position, but the more earnest position is that magic is actually, and this is... Call me arrogant, they're going to call me something else. I mean, practicing magic is, for me, connected to the idea that what I'm doing is actually an imitation to real magic.
Well, when did you? Well, let's talk about that, because my lack of many people's lack of interest in magic is that it's not magic, traditional magic. I mean, like there's a trick. You do a trick, you do a thing, it's sleight of hand, it's skill, it's mastery of skills, having the right kind of fingers and knowing the secrets of how to fool people. It's lying. You're a liar.
Yeah.
You're a fucking liar. I don't like liars.
He never gave me any affirmation when we were kids growing up. He just hated he hated my magic. He never was impressed by it. These fucking which is, by the way, why I stopped doing magic.
I'm the one who made you stop?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well...
And I stopped. I mean, in my teenage years, I stopped. And it took another 20 years for me to actually return to magic. So being a magician or being presented to you as an illusionist is a very it's a very strange. It's a strange thing. It is my first passion. It is a passion that I lost, and then it's a calling that I recovered and have begun to integrate into my more recent work.
Now, hold on a second.
I knew you were going to say that.
Apart from it just being my fault that you stopped doing magic, there's a reason you began to see that there were certain limitations to the kind of magic.
Yeah,
you were doing.
and to be fair, it is the kind of limitations that you mentioned, which is like I didn't want to spend my life engaged in this like corny patter, like of magician patter of doing nerdy little tricks and using my hands to create effects, and it also wasn't going to sustain a career. And as sad as it is, or whatever it is, you grow up and you lose the magic, don't you? And I lost the magic, just like all you lost the magic. And we all at some point in our lives lose the magic, and I lost it literally.
And yet, around the same time that I began this show, you took it up again. Surely nothing to do with any conversations we had. You took it up again. And what made you take it up again?
Well, in our COVID days and post-COVID days, and in that era when the world was spinning out of control, we together, I think, and for each other, encouraged each other to find the way out of the particular hell that we were in. I'll leave it to you to describe what hell that was for you. For me, it was a lack of a sense of personal freedom. It was the souring of personal relationships, the relationship to the woman that I loved, the disrepair of the man-woman relationship in general, the way in which the culture was so politicized, and people advocated for opinions that weren't even theirs, a culture of censorship, a culture of self-censorship, and a feeling where everything that we'd worked on or toward our entire lives. I mean, I went to journalism school, for crying out loud. I was like, what the? No, exactly.
Columbia Journalism School.
And all these things these stepping stones from an early all these.
Or as it's otherwise called, J School. No pun intended.
Yeah. All these things that we'd been working toward, all these ladders that we'd been climbing, all these dreams that we had, all these institutions that we believed in, we start having a sense that this is not real. And there were plenty of people who still said it was real, right? And that's the thing. It's all real. But then something happened. There were certain voices that began to come into your ear. There were certain voices that came into my, and we had to navigate our way out of this particular situation and to return to who we were fundamentally. And so I think my recovering my magic and you recovering your voice and becoming the Filthy Armenian and the brilliant podcast that you've created and the community that you've attracted to your work is extraordinary. And it's a success not because of the number of people who are here or the stadiums that you might fill in the future. That in the first place, it's a major spiritual, a personal success to be able to return to who you are. And so in my darkest of moments, yeah, I did remember the magic set, who I was at 5 years old, and I went and I took those items back out of that box, except they weren't tricks or gimmicks to me anymore. They were parables, they were allegories, they were stories. And I realized that I wasn't going to run away from that, fat kid who did nerdy magic tricks. I was going to bring him to where I was, and I was going to give new life to those tricks and to that magic, and to make them part of the work that I did.
You were going to endeavor to practice real magic.
Because I believe in real magic.
And so, in your book, your character, your narrator, who's not quite you,
But he looks like me, he's my age.
he sounds like you.
Kind of has my face, my body.
Yes,
But it's not me,
it's not you.
okay?
But he's having a rough time in his marriage.
He's having a rough time in his marriage. No one's going to publish him. He's fallen out of favor, you know?
He doesn't have any real close friends left anymore, so that's very much unlike you. So,
true.
you know, he's friendless.
He needs to go on a journey. He needs to receive the black envelope. He needs to travel to this distant island. And because this is all taking place in the context of Me Too, the war between the man and the woman, this is the kind of cultural political context in which this is set. It's natural that he should be traveling to this island with a group of men, 6 men of morally ambiguous.
Give us a little
dubious
flavor of these
background.
men that you've brought to the island with you. I mean, because these are characters who, this is like another kind of mystery style. These are people that you kind of meet in their arc, in their sort of roles that they're playing in the country manor for the weekend. You know,
One of them is a guy by the name of Maxime, as a kind of a post-Soviet thinker, a kind of a conspiracy theorist, but a very charming one, who's, like many of these post-Soviet brilliant intellectuals, is enjoying his retirement and, you know, subreddits and 4chan and so on and so forth. So then there's the young kind of Instagram, kind of the influencer, the manosphere influencer Will. He's in his early 20s, and he's all about...
younger version of Josh Rainier in this audience, a little bit maybe. You know,
So these are men, the men of various charms and various toxicities, and they are all invited to this island, and it's these 6 men who set out to this island, and this island, this remote Greek island, is colonized by women. There are hundreds and hundreds of women who live on this island. They've been lured here in different ways, by different invitations, but they've been lured here by the queen, and the queen is this masked figure who rules over the island, who rules over her hive, as we learn that this place is called. And so it's about these 6 men, told from the first-person perspective, who travel to this island, who vanish one by one until only one man is left. And if he's going to survive, and if he's going to recover his voice, that voice that he had as a writer, if he's going to repair his relationship with his wife, if he's going to be a man again, he's going to need to face the queen. He's going to need to take off her mask. He's going to need to take off his mask. And so, hidden and disguised beneath the structure of the mystery, and I hope the mystery is satisfying, it should be thrilling and entertaining, is embedded a much deeper and much more personal journey toward the recovery of one's personal magic.
otherwise known as manhood, if you're a man and if you're a woman. Tell me a little bit about your knowledge of the bees. I just heard a very interesting story out there about how honey was created by Mr. Adam Luce. He told me the myth of the origin of honey, which you're probably familiar with in the Greek mythology. What's your history with bees and the hive? Why did you choose this as the kind of metaphor? Not really metaphor, but the description of the world of the island.
There are different ways to answer the question. Bees have always been a part of my life. Small personal story was that many years ago I was working on a book. I live in Armenia, by the way. I live in Armenia. I was born in LA. I moved to Armenia when I was a kid, and I've been going back and forth ever since. But in the last decade, I've been permanently living in Armenia. I'm here for a few events, which Alec is taking me on. And I was in a place called the Writer's House, which is this huge in Soviet times, this was the hotel in the resort town of Tsarkadzor, which means the Valley of Flowers. Now it's abandoned. It's this abandoned Soviet building where writers used to go during Soviet times because Armenia was a Soviet country back then. And now it was completely abandoned. I was working on a book at a very cheap rate. I'd rented this room. I was working on a book. And there was nobody else, like the Overlook Hotel and The Shining. But I hear some music, and I follow the music to some distant room. And then sure enough, there's one other writer in this hotel, and he has a beard and hollowed, emaciated, and hollow cheeks. And he's writing his own masterpiece. He's suffering from cancer. He's dying like this brilliant, hidden man that nobody will ever hear about, but like suffering for his craft and his art and writing his last great novel. And we'd go down and have breakfast. We became friends, and we'd go down and have breakfast together and have grechka and other Russian, like Soviet-style foods for breakfast in this huge abandoned cafeteria. And it was this mythic experience, and he would take me on walks, and we'd go walk into the forests of Tsarkadzor, and he would whistle to the birds, and they would whistle back, and he would pick leaves and have me taste it, and he'd have stories about everything, and the bees, and there were bees, and there were bees everywhere. And I'll never forget when he said, he pulled me into one of these brotherly, authorly moments, and he said, we artists, we are like bees. And we go flower to flower, and we take a little information here, a little story there, and we pick all of this nectar, and it's our job to condense it into honey. And that is what artists do. We pick these little things, nectar, and we condense it into honey, into something sweet, into something pure, into something divine. And honey is divine. And many denominations of Christianity in Lent, when you're not supposed to have animal products, you can actually still have honey. And there's a big theological debate as to why you can have honey. And I won't get into that particular bit. And I'll start. It's relevant, though. And I'll start answering the question that is more appropriate, which is the honeys live in a matriarchy. The bees do. The bees are led by a queen. The worker bees are women. The drones, which are the male bees, do nothing at all. They're lazy drones. They're just waiting to fuck all day. They're not really doing anything. So it's a model of a society that is run by women. And because HIVE is an exploration of women, of the possibility of a woman-led world, I thought it was appropriate to build the world of the HIVE around the system of the bees, of the honeybees. And to help me in diagnosing the hive mind, which is really what I was investigating.
Well, which we're talking about you in the book and out of the book by writing the book and everything else, and all of us here on a quest in the last however many years. We all realized we had to do something at some point in the last decade. Some of you started a decade ago. Some of you started 5 years ago. For us, it was 5 years ago, whatever. We realized that the magic was lost. The magic of life was fucking lost. The magic, if you were male, it was especially lost. If you were a woman, it was lost. It was if you had any kind of imagination whatsoever, creativity, any sense of freedom that had somehow survived the 2010s, you realized it was lost, and you had to there had to be something to recover it. And many of us started posting and doing other things and starting podcasts, we decided it was time to fight back. We had to fight, because the alternative was worse than death. And there were we started to fight back. And this book that you wrote was a battle that you began, which is that you started to wage against many different things, mind-forged manacles, as you taught me that William Blake talked about. And when you do start to fight back, you notice that something out there rises to oppose you. You make strides, you go to the island, you make an excuse to your wife to get the hell out of there, and you find a way to do it, you find a way to escape, you get to the island. But you're not home free. You started to fight back, you started to reclaim your manhood, but you realize that there's something out there in this world that is opposing us.
And very often it's not visible. The prisons that we're in and the chains that we're in, and we'll get to that very soon, are completely unseen and easy to dismiss. And I think that we who are gathered in this room and who've been called to talk in these ways and to communicate in these ways are people who are fundamentally people who are searching for freedom and who are achieving freedom through their work, through their art, through their commitment from the invisible forces that bind us. In my case, the metaphor, the system of invisible forces is the hive in my book. And as I said, the hive is modeled on the colony of the bees, and it's ruled by the queen. And unless you have something better to do, I feel like now is the time to pick our new queen.
I mean, if we're fucking ruled by the queen, we might as well have a say in who she is, right?
That's right.
Because we believe in liberal democracy.
That's right.
Liberal democratic values.
So may I ask the very handsome young man standing back there to pick up that ballot box, which has been at that table this whole time, the cardboard box, and bring it toward us. Meanwhile, I will only for the first time be touching this black envelope and only making room here for the box to be placed. Thank you so much. Hot bartender number 2.
Who recognized me at John's Market a couple years ago as the filthy Armenian, randomly.
So we've been having elections for the Queen. Some of you have participated, some of you have failed to, or opposed these elections, knowing that they were rigged in advance. But it's time to talk about this box, and it's time to pick the Queen. Now, before I even open this box and ask, do you want to pick the Queen, or you want to ask a member of the audience to pick the Queen? How do you?
I feel like we should ask a member of the audience, because people might think that I'm in on it or something, and I've never been in anything.
Right. Now, before I do, I think based on the crowd, based on my knowledge or my intuition about the crowd, the kind of people gathered here. I know that there are a lot of, the prompt was to choose a figure or an icon that you love, who's a woman, to write the name down on the ballot card provided, to fold it up and put it in. And a lot of you, I believe, have chosen artists. And I think that's very natural. A lot of you have chosen artists. A lot of you have chosen singers in particular. In another crowd, another crowd, the queen bee would be Beyonce, but that's not what anybody chose. But I am having wild thoughts.
Wow.
Wow. Did anybody choose Rihanna? You chose Rihanna? Yeah. Okay. Wow. Singers. There are different singers, I think, that have a lot of singers. I mean, your fans really chase the obscure, don't they? They really fucking chase the obscure.
They're chasers.
Possibly like an old people we wouldn't even like an old French or Italian icon, female icon who committed suicide. Is there someone like that?
Speak.
No,
up.
seriously?
Yeah, I put somebody like that in.
Who is that?
You want to know who I put in?
Yes, please.
Dalida.
Okay. All right.
All right. So
I'm sorry I
random-
couldn't guess the name in particular.
Dalida. But she's a French or Italian singer who.
Yeah, she's French. She's like the French Cher.
It's the French Cher.
Many decades, many genres, and she killed herself 3 weeks before the day I was born.
Okay.
Close enough, I would say.
Now I got a clue. My old friend Bridget from UCLA. She said, "I'm gonna something old timey. Something old timey." I think you picked a singer too. Yeah. You picked a singer. You picked a singer who is. I think somehow what you picked and what Alec picked are connected in some way. You picked like an old folk singer, folksy, kind of. It's like a cutesy patsy. What is it? Patsy Cline. Is there anything connected that connects Patsy Cline to who you chose? Like the letters P-A-T.
Would you mean Isabel Patterson,
Alec chose Isabel Patterson.
the mentor of Ayn Rand, author of God of the Machine? Has nothing to do with Patsy Cline except for the fact that her nickname is fucking Pat. How did you know that?
It's not the only Isabel that someone chose in this room, though. Did someone else choose an Isabel? You chose Isabel?
Yeah, Isabelle Huppert.
Yes, Isabelle Huppert, a wonderful, wonderful actress.
Anti-feminist.
You think if somebody chose Hillary Clinton, that was a joke, or
It better be.
who's going to own up to that one?
It's a joke.
Well, let's just choose the queen. Let's see who wins. So we've had this black envelope. We've had this ballot box, which we will now open up. And can I ask a member of the audience, Alec, do you want to choose who's going to come up to
Who should we choose?
pick a ballot?
Taylor. Taylor, why don't you come up? You look like you're... Yeah.
Taylor, would you kindly take any one of these ballots, and you may face the audience after you do that to prevent the awkwardness. And there are some votes here. You chose one at random. And would you kindly open the ballot and tell us what it says?
Queen of Hearts.
Queen of Hearts.
Who would put the Queen of Hearts?
All right, and a round of applause for Taylor.
Queen of Hearts.
Queen of Hearts. Well, that's interesting because the Queen of Hearts is, in fact, an icon. We didn't say it needs to be a person, a real life person. Queen of Hearts. It's possible that we had some influence on this. After all, I did write down on that piece of paper, choose a figure or icon that you loved. And then I also call them ballot cards. They're not really ballot cards, right? their Post-it notes. Choose the queen that you loved with ballot cards. 5 of you here. 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. Chose the Queen of Hearts for this reason. And I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I do want to say that nobody really had free choice in this matter. Not the people who voted, not Taylor, who picked the ballot out of the ballot box, and certainly not the people who collaborated in choosing the card that went in this black envelope. And so for the first time, do it. Show them. The Queen of Hearts. The HIVE is the progressive totalitarian state. Anarchy masked as monarchy, masked as democracy. The rule of everybody by nobody. The propaganda machine calls this harmony, but it is only compliance enforced by fear of rejection, isolation, and death, and accomplished through the compulsive signaling of agreement through the social network. Even the dazzling dance of the honeybee is an imitation of individuality, actually a self-effacing gesture of worship, a confession of the death fear, and a joyless celebration of the ruthless god of consensus. In the HIVE, anybody pretending to be somebody is replaced. Even the queen. When she is no longer able to mate or lead, she is murdered, torn to shreds by her own worshippers. I see them racing past me now, mobbing in a murderous frenzy, charging up the HIVE. The honeybees are sick. They have been poisoned by their own vengeful dream. They are victims who, being victims, dreamed of becoming perpetrators, and they are already becoming victims again. As we cross each other in the night, I see only their chaotic and anxious eyes, lonely and miserable eyes, morbid and hateful eyes, proud and Puritan eyes, sexless and lifeless eyes. When they made an enemy of me, did they think they would be happy? No. They will grow more sick and miserable by the day. As their minds seek control of their organs, they will become schizophrenic. Other conditions of the heart and skin will result as a punishment for pride, wrath, and hysterical denial of their nature, treason against our species. The HIVE is fundamentally a suicidal system. In the distance, a scream tears through the night. And by its twang of wild agony, I recognize the event. The queen is dead. Any moment now, chaos will besiege the HIVE. Petty wars will be fought. Bloody rivalries will be staged. But of course, inevitably, because the HIVE is fundamentally a revivalist system, a new queen will rise again. And she will raise the HIVE again and heal it with the balm of a common contempt.
Now that we've elected a new queen, it's time to find out what happened to the last one. Get your copy of HIVE by Garin Hovannisian from Amazon now. Crack it open, and you won't put it down until you've escaped the HIVE. At which point, I ask you to share your thoughts with a review on Amazon and Goodreads. In part 2, we'll talk more about the HIVE and why it matters with Jack Mason in Austin and Yerk in London town. Thank you for listening to Filthy Armenian Adventures in please do subscribe if you're listening for free at patreon.com/filthyarmenian for twice as many feature episodes, regular smoke breaks on topics of the day. Thank you for listening, and to be continued.